My name is Ava Mercer. The moment that still runs hot under my ribs happened at my own father's retirement ceremony. I reached the gate and the petty officer at the tablet told me my name wasn't cleared, because someone had removed it. When I glanced across the courtyard, my father didn't deny a thing. He gave the smallest curl of a smile, like I'd never been his kid, never belonged to this family, never measured up to the Navy bloodline he worshipped. That was when I understood. The version of me my family kept writing, forgettable, expendable, unwanted, was about to be torn clean out, because I carried a truth on my shoulders no one could erase. Morning air bit at my lungs as I walked up to the base in Virginia Beach. Inside the hall, banners hung square, brass shone like it had been polished since dawn, and the murmur of officers and families filled the space. I kept my chin level and handed over a worn invitation that looked tired compared to the glossy envelopes everyone else flashed. The young guard scrolled, then rotated the screen toward me. No, Ava Mercer. Deleted like I'd never existed. His expression stayed professional, but the words still cut. I'm sorry, ma'am. You're not on the list. Over his shoulder, I saw my father a few yards away, ringed by old shipmates. Posture perfect, laugh easy. Like this was his victory lap and the world had come to clap for him. His gaze touched me for a heartbeat, then slid away as if I were just another civilian standing in the wrong line. He didn't need to speak, the message was clear. I wasn't welcome. Through the glass I caught my brother, Graham, in immaculate dress whites, shaking hands with admirals, smile calibrated for cameras. The applause rolling toward him felt like a sent message. The Mercer legacy belonged to him, full stop. The old ache rose, familiar as cadence. The feeling of being the invisible daughter, the one who never fit the family script. But I didn't pivot. Not this time. I turned on my heel and walked steady back to the lot. When I popped the trunk, the truth was right where I'd left it. My dress whites were folded with precision. The silver stars were wrapped in cloth. I unzipped the garment bag and let my palm rest on the crisp fabric. No one inside that hall knew, not my father, not my brother. They could strike a name off a guest list. They couldn't dim what I was about to wear into their ceremony. 3 stars. 15 years of silence, discipline, and wins they would never understand. Norfolk breathes the Navy. Brass bands, drumlines, retirements and homecomings, it all seeps into the sidewalks. Around here, the service is a crown passed from father to son, and Captain Stephen Mercer wore his like it had been cast for him alone. His name opened doors. His uniform quieted rooms before he spoke. From the moment Graham could sprint, he was the heir apparent. Loud, fast, bronze bright, the kind of kid who looked born to salute even before he learned how. My father's eyes warmed around him. He'd plant a hand on Graham's shoulder at cookouts while neighbors nodded along to his stories. Me. I was the quiet one. Afternoons buried in books, working ciphers for fun, sketching troop movements from old campaigns, more interested in patterns and decisions than pull-ups and pep talks. Strength to me wasn't measured by volume. It was the cold, dependable kind, the kind that holds under pressure. In our house that didn't count as much. I still remember standing within earshot of the grill while my father joked to his guests, Ava's clever. But Graham, he's the real warrior. I kept my face neutral and my breathing slow like on a range line. No reaction. Swallow it, keep moving. When Graham's Naval Academy acceptance landed, the house turned into a parade ground. Flags, neighbors, uncles who hadn't visited in years. That same week I took first in a national cryptography challenge, beating out college cadets and career analysts. My father nodded once and said, "Good for you, Ava. But it's not a commission." Moments like that stacked into a wall, brick after brick, until it felt too high to climb. The living room gallery told the rest. Graham in his academy blazer, my father's hand firm on his shoulder. My mother glowing beside them. Me, if I made the frame at all, pushed toward the edge, always a step out of center like the camera hadn't been meant for me. I learned early that no matter the work, I'd be the shadow, not the air. Back at the car, I lifted the stars from their wrap. Cool metal, familiar weight. I breathed in slow. 4 counts in for hold, for out, the way we teach to level heart rate before a brief. Control what you can control. Check your kit. Check your stance. The move. Today I wouldn't ask for a place in the room. I'd take my seat and the truth would do the talking. I didn't follow Graham into parades and photo ops. I took the quiet road, the one with red lights on the ceiling and maps that never made the news. Naval intelligence became my AO. Windowless rooms, classified feeds, decisions measured in lives instead of likes. The fight was invisible, not safer. There was Iron Aegis. 36 straight hours watching a hostile actor crawl through a carrier group's networks. If we'd missed the pivot, 5,000 sailors would have been adrift and blind. We didn't miss. The strike group sailed like nothing happened. Routine operations, the press release said. Then silent anchor. A SEAL element boxed in, comms hammered flat. I yanked a satellite from another theater, stitched a narrow corridor of coverage and held it long enough for their exfil. They came home. People called it luck. No one asked who bent the sky for them. And Midnight Kestrel. A freighter ghosting the Pacific under a respectable flag with cargo that should never glow. With partners from MI6 and the Royal Australian Navy, we threaded the needle, forced a compliant stop, and kept the fallout out of headlines and water alike. Dawn broke. The world turned. Crisis. Averted, uncredited. The medals went into drawers. Commendations arrived in envelopes I never displayed. My most guarded keepsake was a short block-letter note from a SEAL I've never met. We're alive because of you. A man doesn't forget. Proof, folded once and kept close, that the work mattered, even if it stayed nameless. Pride and loneliness can coexist. I carried both. I couldn't brief my parents. I didn't debrief my brother. To them I was paperwork in a windowless office. That was the twist of the knife. The ceremonies they adored, the legacies they quoted. So many rested on work no one was allowed to see. I slipped into the auditorium and took a shadowed seat near the back. The whites in my trunk stayed in the trunk. Plain clothes tonight. Invisible by design among all that polished brass and tradition. Banners hung straight. Metal gleamed. The room felt like a hymn to legacy. The master of ceremonies cleared his throat and poured sugar over the Mercer family, calling us a model lineage. My stomach tightened. Applause swelled as Graham stood in perfect dress whites, every inch the poster my father had presented to the world. Each clap sounded like a stamp. He carries the name forward. When the MC listed Captain Stephen Mercer's children, mine wasn't spoken. That wasn't a stumble. It was scripted. Heat flared under my sternum as nearby whispers floated up. Ava? She's the one who does admin, right? Not real Navy. Not like her brother. Each line landed cleaner than any reprimand. Then softer from the next row, different energy entirely. A pair of young officers leaned together. I've seen A.H. Mercer on a red file, one murmured. Could that be her? Not disbelief, recognition. Cracks in a wall my father had spent years caulking with a smile. On a side table half hidden beneath programs lay a slim folder. I shouldn't have looked. I did. Internal memo. Guest list revisions. At the bottom my father's signature. A line above it typed in tidy. Omit Ava Mercer. Do not detract from Graham's recognition. The burn of it was clean. Not accident. Not oversight. For a breath I was small again. The kid cropped to the edge of family photos. Then the feeling hardened into something I could use. This time the truth would walk in on its own 2 feet. I stepped into the corridor for air. The floor gave back a soft echo under my shoes. Around the corner voices. Graham, tight, not staged for cameras. If Ava shows up, he whispered to a lieutenant beside him, it's over for me. She'll take everything. He always does. Even when people don't see it. I can't let that happen. Desperation unvarnished. His friend tried for a chuckle and missed. The fear on Graham's face did the talking. He wasn't indifferent. He was afraid of the truth I carried. I slid a hand into my coat and felt the folded seal note, edges softened by years. We're alive because of you. I breathed once, steady. The truth doesn't need me to shout. It just needs me to show up. He wasn't indifferent, he was afraid. In that instant the whole picture snapped into focus. It wasn't only my father trying to erase me. My brother had been working the same eraser, both of them fueled less by pride than by the fear that I might outshine the poster they'd built. I slid a hand into my coat and found the folded note I'd carried for years. The ink had bled at the edges but the lines still hit center mass. We're alive because of you. A man doesn't forget. My grip tightened. I didn't need a speech. The truth could carry its own weight. They didn't want me inside because they knew what would happen if I stood under the lights. I'd eclipse them without raising my voice. Fine. Then that's exactly what I'd do. Out in the lot, the wind off the Atlantic pushed salt into the air and tugged at my hair. I closed the car door and the ceremony's noise went faint. The garment bag lay on the seat untouched until now. I unzipped it and the whites caught the dim light, creases razor sharp, every line exactly where it belonged. I fastened each clasp like I was locking in every dismissal, every slight 15 years of quiet work folded into fabric. When I pinned 3 polished stars to my shoulders, the weight settled not as burden but as proof. The mirror gave me a steady face back. Not the girl trimmed out of family photos. The flag officer who had earned every inch, Ava Mercer. My phone buzzed across the console. Secure channel. We're aware you weren't invited. Your presence matters. Be there. A slow breath filled my chest. Cancel. They wanted me present even if blood didn't. Not for revenge, I said softly. To step into the light. I palmed my cover, opened the door and let the wind catch its brim. Inside, the room felt pressurized, hundreds of uniforms aligned, the MC warming up to deliver the kind of bio that turns a man's life into a victory reel. The crowd held its breath in tidy rows. I pushed the doors. The clap of them closing rippled outward. Heels on polished floor controlled pace. Heads turned. Voices clipped off mid-sentence. At first it read as a mistake of perception, until a single voice cut clean through the hush. A seal, older face scored by hard years, rose so fast his chair scraped loud. He had been on silent anchor. He knew what I'd done without ever being briefed on my name. Admiral Mercer, front row. For a heartbeat the hall froze and then the wave hit. One by one, then all at once, rows of SEALs stood in rigid salute. Chairs slammed back in a rolling thunder that rattled chandeliers and nerves alike. The MC flinched, his mic slipped, shrieked on tile and died. The script in his hand might as well have been blank. My father's toast hung mid-air, the glass unmoving in his fingers, color drained from his face. Graham looked as if the floor had shifted under him. Mouth open, words gone missing. I kept walking. No wave. No nod. Just forward motion and 3 stars catching the light. This had been their stage. Legacy, lineage, rehearsed glory. With each step the story rewrote itself without me saying a word. Silence fell hard and complete. SEALs held their salute. The light glanced off white fabric and bright metal. Every breath in the room felt metered, waiting to see what I'd choose to do. I didn't hesitate. Down the center aisle, heels ticking like a metronome. The crowd parted. At the front row I turned, set my cover on my knee and took the empty seat. The room's balance shifted with that single simple act. No explanation offered. None required. The truth had arrived and sat down. I didn't need a mic or a speech. The truth was already stitched into the 3 silver stars everyone could see. One by one, senior brass pushed back their chairs and came over. A vice admiral with a rack like a mosaic gripped my hand, voice low and clipped. Good to finally meet the name behind those red covers. Another followed. Then another. Each handshake carried the weight of years when credit had been filed under unknown. A 3-star bent close, words for me alone. If you hadn't done your job, rooms like this don't get to celebrate. His tone stayed level, but the look in his eyes cut deeper than applause. At the edge of my vision, my father was still, wine glass trembling in his fingers, like he couldn't decide whether to set it down or cling to it. Graham hunched forward, eyes fixed on the floor, as if looking up might topple whatever story he'd been living in. Their silence said more than any toast that had once edited me out. I laid my cover neatly across my knee, back straight, breathing even. I didn't rise to address the room. No briefing. No defense. Presence was enough. Pounded for. Undeniable. Then it started. One cautious clap, then a second, then a swell that rolled across the hall on its own momentum. Not prompted. Not rehearsed. Just the sound a truth makes when people finally stop pretending not to see it. For the first time in my life, I wasn't erased or sidelined. The story could not proceed without me centered in the frame. As the ceremony thinned and guests drifted, the murmurs followed in my wake. Graham reached me first, voice unsteady, near cracking. How long? 15 years, I said. The number landed like weight on his chest. He rocked back a half step, exhaling as if something finally pressed all the air from him. My father came next. No words. His gaze traced the stars at my shoulders, measured every seam he once declared out of my reach. The glass twitched in his hand. After a long, taut beat, he gave a single, deliberate nod. Not contrition. Not repair. Acknowledgement, real, undeniable. In that quiet, his nod admitted what he'd never say aloud. He had been wrong. 6 months later I was back in Norfolk. The house looked the same, flag outside still weathered by salt and sun, the kitchen perfumed with my mother's roast. But the living room had a new axis. Where Graham's Academy portrait once sat alone in the glass cabinet, one of my medals hung beside it, ribbon straight, catching the light without apology. For the first time there was room for my story on that wall. At dinner, my father leaned in without the old stiffness, asking about how you hold an intel team together across time zones and touchpoints. His questions landed like genuine curiosity instead of polite placeholders. My mother listened with that soft, relieved smile she saves for when the house feels lighter. Graham was quieter, forks still, eyes clearer. No rivalry. No posture. Just recognition. Driving out under the dark Virginia sky, I caught my reflection in the rear view. No shadow at the edge of the frame. Whole. Steady. Unmistakable. I smiled and said to the quiet, the truest acknowledgement never came from them. It had been mine to give all along, and that night I claimed it for good.